What if I told you that laziness isn't the problem, but the symptom? Yes, the symptom of a weak mind, one that's been trained to give up before even starting. Every time you procrastinate, that version of you hate grows stronger. And if you don't do something now, it's going to devour you. The Stoics taught us that laziness isn't beaten by waiting for motivation to show up. It's beaten with action, with discipline, with firm decisions, even in the middle of chaos. In this video, you're going to discover how to apply that Stoic mindset to stop being a slave to inertia and take back control of your will. If you're tired of putting your life on hold, stick around. This is going to hurt, but it's also going to wake you up. Before we begin, I want you to ask yourself an uncomfortable question. How many times has laziness kept you stuck while life moved on without you? If that question stings, that's a good sign. It means you're ready to change. Subscribe and join this community of people who are done postponing their lives. And in the comments, make it loud and clear. Today, I declare war on laziness. Ready to take back control of your will? Then, get ready, because this is where the change begins. Inside every person, there's a stronger, wiser, calmer version of themselves. But that version doesn't show up when everything's going well. It shows up when life puts you to the test. Let me prove it to you with this story. Year 176 AD. In a military tent in the northern part of the empire, the most powerful emperor in Rome sits silently in front of his mentor's body. Outside, the soldiers speak in hushed voices. The wind shakes the canvas, and the scent of damp earth fills the air. Marcus Aurelius, exhausted, can barely breathe. Lying beside him is Junius Rusticus, the man who taught him how to think, how to write, how to master himself. For years, he had been his guide, his mirror, his conscience. But now he's gone. Marcus runs his hand over the parchment his mentor used to write on. The letters seem asleep. No one else sees it. But at that moment, Marcus feels something he's never felt before. The weight of having to carry on alone. Rusticus had taught him virtue, composure, serenity. But now he understands that none of those teachings matter if you don't live them when the teacher is no longer around. There's no more advice, no more corrections. All that's left is his own mind, his own judgment. That night, he gives no orders. He doesn't write speeches. He writes for himself, not with pride, but with urgency. He writes to remember who he wants to be when no one is watching, when the world falls apart, when the master's voice goes silent. The first lines are clumsy, but over time they'll become his daily practice. What began as a private exercise will eventually become the book we now call Meditations. But he doesn't write thinking of history. He writes to survive. Each word is a chisel striking his character. Each reflection, a step toward clarity. Every night he repeats the same ritual. Examine his thoughts, his actions, his intentions. He's not chasing perfection. He's searching for truth. They say big changes come during times of crisis. But in reality, the Stoics believed transformation begins long before that, in the small decisions you make every day. That's what Marcus Aurelius discovered that night, that the most important teacher isn't out there, it's within. That character is built in solitude, in silence, through consistency. From that day forward, the emperor no longer needed grand speeches to govern his mind. He started living guided by three unspoken principles: brutal clarity to look at himself without excuses, intelligent discipline to act in line with his values, and strategic patience to accept the process without giving up. He didn't wait for the perfect moment to change. He changed every day, with what he had, where he was. Maybe that's the side of Marcus Aurelius people know the least, not the warrior or the emperor, but the man who realized that becoming his best self was something to forge in the everyday, that it wasn't enough to know what virtue was. You had to live it. When the sun rose, the army got ready to move forward. Marcus put away Rusticus's writings, stood up, and stepped out into the cold. No one noticed the difference, but he did. In silence, he had made a pact with himself. Never stop shaping who he was, because every day, even in the middle of duty, He would keep polishing his soul with the small decisions that brought him closer to his best self. And so, the most powerful man in the world came to understand something many still don't, that true mastery isn't exercised over others, but over yourself. That your best version doesn't show up in the big moments, but in the small acts you repeat when no one's watching. Tell me something. When was the last time you felt proud of the person you are? If that question makes you stop and think, share it in the comments. What part of you needs to wake up again? Or just write, "Today I start rebuilding myself." Don't forget to subscribe and become an exclusive member so we can keep growing together. Because your best version isn't something you find, it's something you build. Shall we begin? Lesson 1. Your mind needs sky, not screens. Picture this: you wake up and the first thing you see is a screen. Not the sun, not the sky. A screen, then another, and another. You go from your phone to your computer, from your computer to the TV. You say you're tired, that you need clarity, that you're low on energy, but you can't remember the last time you saw a sunrise without checking the clock. That's the problem. Your mind is exhausted because your soul is locked away. You breathe recycled air, walk on artificial ground, and look at filtered landscapes instead of real ones. It's no mystery why you're drained. You're disconnected. If Marcus Aurelius saw you today, he'd probably be shocked. Not by your technological progress, but by how far you've strayed from what's essential. He found calm in watching the sunrise, reminding himself that just as the day begins again, so could his mind. Nature wasn't his escape, it was his teacher. It taught him discipline, consistency, and humility. Epictetus did the same. He walked every day, not to train his body, but to organize his thoughts. They understood that contact with the earth was the best antidote to confusion. Now look at yourself. Really look. You're running without moving, working without seeing daylight, resting without actually resting. When was the last time you touched the earth with your hands? Let the wind mess up your hair without checking your phone. You've replaced the sound of the sea with notifications, the whisper of trees with traffic. And then you wonder why your mind is at war. No fancy diagnosis needed. You're missing contact with what's real. Modern psychology calls it nature deficit disorder, but you don't need a study to feel it. You know it. After a whole day glued to screens, your body may be still, but your mind is racing. The visual noise wears you out. Your brain doesn't know how to pause. Nature, on the other hand, asks for nothing. It doesn't compete, interrupt, or judge. It gives you something no app ever will: presence. Picture this. You've been overwhelmed for weeks, your mind a mess. You decide to go for a walk at sunset. At first, you're still thinking about your problems. You walk fast, shoulders tense. But slowly, the fresh air starts to clear you out. You hear your footsteps, notice the light changing, feel the breeze on your face. And suddenly, everything slows down. What seemed urgent becomes small. What weighed heavy doesn't hit as hard. Not because it disappeared, but because you regained perspective. That's what nature does. It reminds you how small you are, and that reminder frees you from the ego that fuels your anxiety. Imagine what Seneca would say if he joined you on that walk. He'd probably tell you that every gust of wind is a lesson in adaptation. Every shift in temperature an opportunity to practice resilience. He once wrote, "To always live in comfort and avoid hardship is to ignore half of nature." He wasn't talking about scenery or getaways. He meant that raw, wild part of life that toughens your soul and clears your mind. So the next time your head feels like it's about to explode, don't grab another screen. Open a window, step outside, look at the sky, breathe air that didn't come from a machine. Feel the ground beneath your feet. Within minutes, your body will send a message your mind forgot. The world isn't as hostile as it feels. Calm is still out there. Not everything is lost. Make it a habit. Watch the sunrise even if you're tired. Walk in the rain without rushing for cover. Let the cold wake you up. Let the sun wrap around you. Breathe in the ocean air, even when it stings your skin. Every one of those moments is a Stoic lesson in action. accepting what is without complaining, without resistance. The more you do it, the tougher your character gets, and the less room your weakness has to grow. Musonius Rufus taught this directly. He made his students expose themselves to the elements, not to suffer but to grow stronger, enduring cold, handling heat, walking long distances, because whoever avoids physical discomfort ends up trapped in mental weakness. He knew that nature doesn't just heal, it trains, and that truth still holds today. So next time you feel weak, don't look for comfort on the couch or anesthesia in a screen. Go outside, look up, touch a tree, listen to the wind. That's your invisible gym. Open every day, free, with no excuses. Every step you take under the sun, in the rain, or against the wind is a strike against your weakness. Because nature doesn't just calm you, it reminds you that you're still alive, that you belong to it, and that true strength is never built in comfort. It's built through connection with what's real. Lesson 2. Review your steps every night. Every night when the world shuts down and you're alone with yourself, there's a mirror few dare to face, the mirror of your own actions. Many avoid it because they fear what they'll see reflected, because facing yourself is much harder than facing any external obstacle. But the Stoics never hesitated. For them, the day didn't end when the sun went down. It ended when they sat down to review it with brutal honesty, when they examined every decision, every reaction, every thought. Only then could they adjust course before making the same mistake again. Think about it for a moment. A man, alone in his room in Rome. The streets are quiet, the palace sleeps, yet he's still awake with a small lamp burning. He's the emperor of the most powerful empire in the world, and still, instead of celebrating himself or feeling invincible, he's writing in his journals, reflecting on his mistakes, his emotions, his reactions throughout the day. That man is Marcus Aurelius, and what he does each night is not some intellectual exercise. It's an act of discipline. It's how he made sure he wasn't a slave to his impulses. That power and routine wouldn't sweep him away without awareness. Now compare that to what most of us do today. We end the day exhausted, minds on autopilot, checking notifications or letting a show lull us to sleep. We never look back. We never examine what we did well or poorly. And then we're surprised when we keep making the same mistakes the next day. The difference isn't that Marcus Aurelius was wiser or had more time. It's that he understood something most people miss. Without review, there is no progress. Without reflection, there is no growth. And without that honest look in the mirror, laziness has free rein to keep repeating the same old script. Benjamin Franklin did the same thing, and not because of philosophy, but because of efficiency. Every night, he sat in front of his 13 Virtues journal and asked whether he'd lived by them. When he failed, he wrote it down. No drama, no excuses. He didn't do it to punish himself, but to improve little by little each day. And that daily little is what took him from being a broke apprentice to one of the most influential minds in history. You've probably felt it too. You end the day with a sense that you didn't move forward. You say you didn't have time for your personal project, but if you look honestly, you spent 40 minutes arguing online and 20 scrolling through useless videos. It wasn't a lack of time, it was a lack of intention. Or maybe this: you promised to be more patient but lost your temper with a coworker. If you don't reflect on why it happened, you'll do it again tomorrow without realizing. But if you calmly analyze it, you'll be able to see it coming next time. So now I want to propose a small nighttime ritual. Before going to bed, sit in silence for 5 minutes. No screens, no distractions. Mentally review your day like a movie. Look at what you did well, the moments when laziness took over, the opportunities you let pass. Do it without judgment, like a scientist observing an experiment. That objective mindset is what allows real improvement. You can also try something more tangible. Write down 3 things you did well today and 1 thing you want to improve tomorrow. It may sound simple, but this habit changes how your brain sees progress. You stop focusing only on what went wrong and start building on what went right. And above all, you stop being a spectator in your life. You become its editor. Another practice that can help: write a message to your future self. Something as simple as, tomorrow, when you feel like putting off that task, remember how you felt today when you didn't move forward. That sentence can be the difference between repeating the pattern and breaking it. Laziness feeds on autopilot. It grows stronger in the inertia of days that pass without reflection, in decisions that get repeated without being questioned. But when you turn nightly reflection into a habit, you change the way you live your days. You stop acting blindly, you act with awareness, you stop repeating mistakes, you correct them, and every night stops being the end of the day. It becomes the first step toward the next one. So tell me, are you willing to look in the mirror tonight without filters? Share in the comments. What's the first question you'll ask yourself before going to sleep? Because that conversation with yourself, that's where real progress begins. And that's where laziness loses its grip. Lesson 3. Forge your mindset from the very first minute of the day. Begin each day by thinking about the difficulties you're going to face. Marcus Aurelius didn't write this to scare himself. He did it to strengthen himself. He did it because he knew the most important battle isn't fought out there, but inside your head. And that battle starts the moment you open your eyes. The first minute of your day isn't just a detail. It's the moment where you decide if you'll master your mind or let it master you. Think about this. Every morning is like a burning forge. The metal you throw into it, your thoughts, your emotions, your first decisions, will determine whether your mind becomes an unbreakable shield or a piece of glass ready to shatter. Many people believe their weakness shows up in big problems, arguments, failure, loss. But the truth is, it starts much earlier, in those first quiet moments of the day when autopilot takes over. You see it in the simplest situations. You wake up and the first thing you do is check your phone. Endless scrolling, comparisons, fake urgency. In less than 5 minutes, your mind no longer belongs to you. It's filled with other people's noise, with expectations that aren't yours, with thoughts that sabotage your peace. Then you wonder why it's so hard to focus, why any criticism breaks you down, or why you live in a constant state of anxiety. My friend, the truth is, you're not forging your mind, you're leaving it defenseless. The Stoics had a name for this training: the premeditation of evils. It wasn't an exercise in pessimism. It was about strength. It meant preparing your mind for the inevitable. Difficult people, mistakes, injustice, loss. By visualizing them at the start of the day, they reduced their emotional impact. It was like building a wall before the storm hit. And that wall gave them something the outside world could never offer: control over their reactions. Today, 2,000 years later, we still need that same practice. But instead of premeditating, we let ourselves get dragged around. Instead of deciding how we'll respond, we just react to whatever shows up. And that one difference changes everything. Because a strong mind isn't born in crisis. It's shaped in routine. And every morning is a new chance to shape it. And that's something many high performers do too. Take director Christopher Nolan, for example, the mind behind some of the most complex and successful films in recent decades. He has a habit few people know about. Every morning he spends 20 minutes in total silence. No phone, no emails, no news. He does it to clear his mind, anticipate the day's obstacles, and decide how he'll respond. In his own words, chaos always shows up, but if your mind is clear at the start of the day, nothing can drag you down with it. That simple ritual, repeated over the years, is what's allowed him to work under massive pressure without losing focus or balance. And that's the difference between a fragile mind and a forged one. You can start forging yours with a few simple steps. When you wake up, take a minute to remind yourself that things will go wrong. And that's okay. Maybe someone will disappoint you, maybe a plan will fail, maybe the day will hit harder than expected. If you expect it, it won't break you. In fact, every obstacle will become part of your training. Then, set a clear intention. Ask yourself, what kind of person do I want to be today? Not what you want to achieve, but how you want to respond to the world. This question shifts your perspective because it brings your focus to what's in your control. And that's one of the most powerful teachings in Stoicism. You can't always control what happens outside, but your attitude is always in your hands. Lastly, create your own mental anchor. It could be a phrase you repeat, like, "Nothing external can harm me unless I let it." A short breathing exercise, or even writing down 3 ideas you want to keep in mind throughout the day. This small habit acts like a compass when the chaos begins to hit. At first, your mind will resist. It'll tell you there's no time, that it's unnecessary, that there are more urgent things to do. But remember this: the soldier doesn't wait to be on the battlefield to start training. He prepares every day, even when there's no war. You're doing the same, building the foundation of a mind that won't break at the first hit. The Stoics didn't aim to eliminate pain or fear. They aimed to never be ruled by them. They knew the storm would come, but they also knew they could learn to stand through it. And that's what you're doing when you choose to forge your mindset from the first minute of the day. Lesson 4. Failure doesn't defeat you, it trains you. Think about the last time you failed at something. Maybe you spent weeks preparing for an important presentation. You barely slept, redid your slides a dozen times, and when the big day finally came, something went wrong. You stumbled over your words, forgot a key part, and noticed people losing interest. You finished early, feeling like you'd ruined everything. And the first thing you did was blame yourself, right? You walked home replaying every mistake, with that voice in your head whispering, "Why didn't I do better?" You felt shame, frustration, even anger at yourself. But let me tell you something. The only thing that takes a step back when you fail is your ego. You keep moving forward. Because even if that presentation didn't go as planned, you walked away with something far more valuable. The experience that helps you do better next time. What truly shapes you isn't the result. It's your ability to look at your mistakes without giving up. That's the same lesson Seneca learned from his own failures. He was an advisor to emperors, but he was also unjustly accused, exiled, and betrayed by those he trusted most. That's why he wrote, "No man was ever wise by chance." He didn't say it from a comfortable life, but from experience. He lived through loss, exile, political failure, and betrayal. Yet he never saw them as tragedies, but as part of the process of becoming stronger and more aware. Because wisdom, like strength, doesn't come from success. It's born from calmly observing your mistakes and learning from them. Now imagine your life as a laboratory. Every decision you make is an experiment. Some work, some don't, but all of them teach you something. The problem is that most people treat failure like an exam, when in reality, it's practice. Every time something goes wrong, life is giving you valuable information about how you think, how you react, and where fear still controls you. The Stoic is like a scientist, testing, observing, adjusting, and trying again. They don't punish themselves for failing, they learn from it. Because failure doesn't define you, it reveals you. And what you do after you fail defines who you're becoming. We all fail. The difference lies in what happens next. Some people lock themselves in guilt, while others turn the stumble into a lesson. The Stoics chose the second path. Epictetus said, "Circumstances don't make the man, they reveal him." And he was right. It's not failure that destroys you. It's the way you interpret it. If you see it as the end, it drags you down. If you see it as training, it builds you up. It's like learning to shoot an arrow. At first, you miss the target completely, but every miss gives you feedback about the angle, the strength, the wind. If you observe, you improve. If you get frustrated, you repeat the same mistake. That's how life works. Every failure, if you look at it calmly, teaches you where to aim better next time. And that, my friend, is what separates someone who gets stuck from someone who evolves. Change the question from, "Why did this happen to me?" to, "What is this trying to teach me?" That simple shift turns suffering into growth. Every mistake can be a disguised teacher if you're willing to listen. When something goes wrong, write it down. Note what was under your control and what wasn't. Seeing it on paper helps you understand that not everything depends on you. Your responsibility isn't to control the outcome, but to learn from the process. That understanding frees you from guilt and brings you peace. Seneca also said, "Difficulty awakens the spirit of a brave man." And he wasn't talking about heroic courage, but that quiet strength that appears when you decide not to give up. When you choose to get up one more time, even when the world says there's no point, that's when you grow stronger. Remember this: failure doesn't make you less, it makes you more aware. Every fall, if you observe it without drama, trains you not to depend on the outcome, but to focus on the right action. And when you act from that calmness, you realize that you never truly lose. You simply change form. Yes, some people break when they fail, but others are forged by it. The difference lies in how they interpret the hit. The one who blames themselves stays trapped in the past, while the one who reflects builds the future. The first person stays inside the wound. The second extracts wisdom from it. Think of all the times you thought something was the end, only to discover later that it was the beginning of something new. Sometimes what looks like failure is just a course correction. You didn't lose. You learned to steer better. You didn't fall. You gathered momentum. Lesson 5. Vigilance never stops. When was the last time you checked if your light was still on? Do you remember the last time you let your guard down, and without realizing it, those old habits slipped back in? Maybe it was skipping a workout just for today, or saying tomorrow to something you knew you needed to do today. And what seemed like an exception slowly turned into routine. Suddenly, the part of you you'd already left behind was back in control. Vigilance never stops. Picture a lighthouse on the coast. Night after night, its light guides ships. It doesn't matter if there's a storm or calm seas, if the sky is pitch black or full of stars, it must always shine. The day it goes dark, even for a few hours, a ship can crash. Your life works the same way. The moment you stop watching, you leave a gap for your weak version to slip back in. And believe me, it doesn't need much time to settle in. You see it in everyday life. You start the year strong, training, eating well, working on your goals. Months pass, and when you feel like you've got it under control, you ease up. You skip workouts because one won't matter. You start eating anything, pushing off what's important. And before you know it, you're no longer steering the wheel. Your comfortable, lazy version has silently taken over. Look at Haruki Murakami. The Japanese author has kept a strict routine for decades, waking up early, writing for hours, running or swimming daily, and going to bed at the same time. He says his discipline isn't a phase, it's the only way to keep his creativity from rusting. There's no magic, just constant vigilance. If he whose life's work is to create, let himself relax just a little, he'd lose the rhythm that allows him to write books read by millions. In Stoicism, this idea is crystal clear. Epictetus put it simply but firmly. Freedom isn't reached in a single step. It's maintained with continuous vigilance. The hard part isn't reaching your best version once. It's not letting it crumble over time. For a Stoic, strength isn't a prize you win. It's a habit you feed daily. And this isn't just philosophy. Angela Duckworth, psychologist and author of Grit, shows in her research that long-term consistency outweighs talent in achieving any goal. It's not the spark at the start that gets you far. It's the ability to keep turning the light back on when no one's clapping and the initial motivation is gone. So ask yourself, how can you keep your light on? First, set your daily non-negotiable minimum. And by minimum, I mean something so easy to do it would be ridiculous not to. If your goal is to get fit, it could be 20 squats while the coffee brews. If you're learning a language, maybe it's 5 minutes of practice while brushing your teeth or riding the bus. The point is that even on the worst days, you keep going. Because, my friend, if you only train or study when you feel like it, you'll never kill the part of you that hunts for excuses. Second, track everything. Don't keep it in your head, because that's where your weak version cheats. Use a calendar where you mark an X for each day completed, an app with alerts, or even a simple sheet on the fridge. Seeing that chain of marked days becomes addictive, and breaking it stings. If you skip today, Tomorrow you'll see that gap and it'll bother you. It's like looking at a wall with a perfect row of bricks, and right in the middle, one is cracked. You can't leave it like that. Third, level up slowly. Don't go overboard overnight. If you run 3 kilometers, go to 3.5. If you meditate 10 minutes, make it 12. It's a mental game. Each small increase reminds your mind that stagnation isn't an option here. Because if everything stays the same for too long, your best version gets too comfortable, and your worst version starts waking up. My friend, never forget that your weak version doesn't rest. It's there, crouching, waiting for the day you think, I don't need to try so hard anymore. Truly killing it means never giving it even a second's advantage. It means keeping your light on every single day, even when it feels unnecessary. Because when your vigilance is constant, you don't just avoid crashing, you move toward a harbor your lazy self could never reach. Sixth lesson. Real power doesn't come from speaking. Picture this scene, a room full of clashing voices, each one fighting to survive. Everyone wants to be right. Everyone wants the last word. Every sentence is a punch, every reply a desperate attempt to win. But in the middle of all that noise, and there's someone saying nothing, just sitting there, in silence, observing. They don't need to raise their voice to be noticed, and yet everyone feels their presence. That silence carries weight. It carries presence. It carries power. And you know what's most interesting? That power doesn't come from speaking louder. It comes from knowing when not to speak. The Stoics understood this perfectly. Epictetus used to say we have 2 ears and 1 mouth because we should listen twice as much as we speak. And he didn't say it to sound wise. He said it because he knew silence isn't an awkward gap. It's a tool that can completely transform the way you live, think, and respond. Now, let's be honest. Today, silence makes us uncomfortable. We avoid it like it's an enemy. We turn on the TV even if we're not watching. We play music even when we're not listening. We fill every moment with empty noise just to avoid facing ourselves. But think about it. What are you really doing when you fill every second with noise? You're losing control. You're handing over the steering wheel of your mind to every impulse. Real power doesn't come from saying more. It comes from deciding when to speak, and especially when to stay silent. In a world that rewards the loudest voice, silence becomes a superpower. Think about this. Someone throws an unfair criticism at you in front of everyone. Your first instinct is to defend yourself. Raise your voice, answer with anger. In that moment, your mind is like an archer. Every word you fire is an arrow. If you shoot without thinking, you'll run out of ammo and impact. But if you choose your shots carefully, every word can change something. And often the most powerful shot is the one you don't take. So what happens when you choose silence? Something shifts. The power shifts. Your silence exposes the other person's insecurity, lets their words burn out on their own. Meanwhile, you hold on to your energy, your dignity, your peace. The Stoics called that freedom. Because someone who can't stay silent is chained to their impulses. They're a slave to their ego, their need to prove something, their fear of being misunderstood. But the one who learns to pause, to breathe, to observe before reacting, that person becomes the master of themselves. And no, this isn't theory. It's pure practice. Try this. Next time someone tries to provoke you, hold your silence for 10 seconds before responding. Just 10. It might seem small, but in that tiny pause, something huge happens. Your mind shifts from reacting to choosing. You ask yourself, is this really worth my energy? Or can I just move on without dragging myself into conflict? And many times you'll realize silence is your most elegant victory. You can even take it further. Practice silence with yourself. When was the last time you spent 5 minutes with no music, no phone, no distractions? At first, it'll feel uncomfortable. I get it. Noise acts like an anesthetic, and when you remove it, the thoughts you've been avoiding come to the surface. But do you know what happens if you keep going? You start to hear yourself. You begin to understand what you're feeling, what you want, what you need. In that apparent emptiness, there are answers that noise will never give you. And here's something most people don't understand. Silence doesn't just strengthen your mind, it transforms your relationships. Listening without interrupting, without thinking about your next response, creates a deeper, more authentic connection. When you no longer need to speak just to prove yourself, you radiate confidence. And that confidence, it's felt, it's respected. Now, don't get me wrong. Staying silent doesn't mean swallowing injustice or holding back what needs to be said. It means choosing your battles wisely. It means knowing that not every provocation deserves a response, and not every opinion needs to be shared. As Zeno of Citium said, it's better to stumble with your feet than with your tongue. Because impulsive words can break bridges you won't be able to rebuild. So ask yourself, do you really need to answer every provocation? Do you really have to explain every decision? Or would it be smarter to stay quiet and let your actions speak for you? Because every time you choose silence, you strengthen your self-control. Every pause before you speak sharpens your clarity. And every word you hold back is a sign that you're in control, not your emotions. Lesson 7. Build your inner strength. Everyone wants to change their life, but few stop to ask, what foundation am I building on? Many chase results without first laying the base that will hold them up when everything starts to shake. Imagine your mind as a walled city. If the walls are weak, any word, emotion, or criticism breaks through. But if they're solid, nothing external can bring you down. That's how the Stoics understood true strength, not as something physical, but as a mental structure built on principles, clarity, and calm. They weren't trying to conquer the world. They were trying to govern themselves. Modern life teaches us to strengthen the body, the bank account, the image. But, my friend, none of that means anything if your mind is still fragile. True strength doesn't show in your muscles. It shows in how calmly you respond when everything goes wrong. And that inner strength isn't built overnight. It rises from small daily choices, shaped by clarity, discipline, and patience. That is the foundation of all real transformation. If you truly want to become your best version, the one that stands firm even when the world changes, you need to build 3 essential pillars. These are the same ones the great Stoics practiced, and you can start applying them today. Brutal clarity, intelligent discipline, and strategic patience. The first pillar is brutal clarity. Marcus Aurelius practiced it every night. He didn't write in his journal to impress anyone. He wrote to see himself clearly. His writing was his mirror. That's where he faced his fears, his ego, his mistakes. He didn't lie to himself, he observed. And that's what's often missing, the ability to look at yourself without filters, without excuses, without decoration. When you say, that's just how I am, what you're really saying is, I don't want to change. But when you dare to look at yourself without judgment, you discover what parts of you need work. Clarity doesn't come all at once. It shows up when you start asking uncomfortable questions. Why do I react like this? What am I avoiding? Am I living by my values or just out of habit? If you ask yourself those questions every day, you create space to build from truth. Because there is no real change without radical honesty with yourself. The second pillar is discipline. Seneca said that a free man is one who rules over himself. Discipline isn't rigidity, it's freedom. Think of every emotion as a wild horse. If you let it run loose, it drags you. If you try to kill it, you lose part of yourself. But if you learn to guide it, you move far without destroying yourself. That's how the mind works. Discipline isn't about repressing. It's about learning how to direct your energy toward what makes you stronger. So don't rely only on willpower. If you have to fight with yourself every day just to do the right thing, you'll end up exhausted. Design your environment to help you. If you want to read more, leave a book on the table. If you want to meditate, set up the space before bed. Make what's good for you easy, and make what pulls you away from your best self harder to reach. That's intelligent discipline, building systems that support you even when you don't feel like it. The third pillar is strategic patience. The Stoic understands that nothing great happens fast. We live in a time that worships speed. But the things that truly matter take time. Like a seed that goes through seasons before it blooms, you too need to go through winters. Seneca wrote, "No tree becomes strong with just one summer." Strength isn't built through quick wins. It's built through endurance on the slow days. Strategic patience isn't passivity. It's steady action without anxiety over results. It's understanding that real progress includes days of calm and days of storm. Some days, everything flows, and others, all you can do is hold on. But even on those days, if you stick to your principles, you're still building. What grows slowly lasts longer. What grows fast dazzles, but breaks. You can start today. Create a small reflection ritual at night, just 5 minutes before bed, to ask yourself, did I act from my values today or from impulse? Don't do it to judge yourself. Do it to stay awake. Over time, that practice gives you a clarity that cuts through everything like a blade. Except that the path won't be linear. Some days you'll feel calm, others like everything is falling apart. But each one of those days shapes your character. It's consistency that turns stone into sculpture. Don't chase motivation, chase coherence. That's real stability. The kind that doesn't depend on mood, but on your commitment to what you know is right for you. Lesson 8. The trap of waiting for the perfect moment. Picture this: you've spent months talking about your big idea. I'm going to start my YouTube channel, you say with excitement. You've devoured tutorials, bought a camera that looks like it came straight from a movie set, and filled a notebook with brilliant ideas. Every page is a map to your success. But there's one detail. You never open it. Because you're waiting for that magical day when the sun shines just right. You have 0 dark circles, and your voice sounds like a radio host's. And of course, that day never comes. Meanwhile, the folder called Channel on your computer stays empty, like a museum with no exhibits. It's like standing in a train station where dozens of trains pass by every day, heading to incredible places. But you don't get on any of them because you're waiting for that special train, the one with velvet seats, soft music, and perfect coffee service. The problem is that train doesn't exist, and while you wait, other passengers are already traveling, collecting stories and experiences while you stay on the platform. The same thing could have happened to Sarah Blakely, founder of Spanx, if she had waited. In her 20s, she worked selling fax machines door to door and hated her job. One day, before heading out, she cut the legs off her pantyhose so they wouldn't show under her pants. Something so simple became her spark. She wanted to sell the idea, but there was a problem. She knew nothing about fashion, had no contacts, and certainly no money for a big company launch. The logical thing would have been to wait until she got trained or found an expert partner. But she didn't. She went out, bought a pair of expensive pantyhose, cut them herself, and started showing them to friends, then to stores, until a major chain placed an order. The prototype was imperfect, the packaging was basic, and she took the catalog photos herself. Years later, Spanx became a multi-million-dollar brand, and she became the youngest self-made female billionaire in the US. See the point? If she had waited for the perfect product, where would she be now? Still ringing doorbells to sell fax machines. The Stoics would have found this idea of waiting for perfection absurd. Epictetus put it simply, the best way to guarantee success is to act. For them, action was the antidote to paralysis, and that paralysis is exactly what feeds your weak version, the one that convinces you tomorrow will be better, that now's not the time, that you're missing something before you can start. Here's where I want you to take this seriously, my friend. If you're waiting for conditions to be perfect, you're betting on a ticket that's never going to be issued. What you need isn't perfection, it's movement. So replace the word perfect with functional. Your project doesn't have to be 100% ready to start. If it's at 50%, it's enough to get moving. Think about Ali Abdaal, doctor and content creator, who talks about the minimum viable version. Launching before you're ready not only speeds up your learning, but also smashes the mental barrier of waiting. Also, make the first version of what you want and share it with someone you trust. Not so they can tell you if it's perfect, but to force yourself to take the next step. If you tell them, "I'll show you my first video on Tuesday," there's no turning back. That external commitment is a simple but powerful trick to stop postponing. Finally, every time you feel it's not the moment, ask yourself, is this a real obstacle or fear in disguise? And be careful. Fear is a good actor. It can show up dressed as a logical excuse. Better wait until I have more time. I need one more course first. I don't have the ideal equipment yet. No, that's just a script your weak version feeds you to keep you still. Make it more fun. Next time you hesitate, picture your weak version sitting in a comfy chair, eating popcorn, and clapping every time you delay something. Ask yourself if you want to keep giving them that free show. Remember, nobody starts ready. Podcaster Jordan Harbinger says it in his interviews. The first times are uncomfortable, awkward, and sometimes even embarrassing. But those first times are what put you on the path. There's no way to skip them. The perfect train doesn't exist. The ones that have already passed aren't coming back. And every time you let one go, your weak version is smiling from the platform. So get on the next one that comes along, even if the seats are hard and the ride is slower. That journey, with its flaws and lessons, is the one that takes you to living as your best self. Ninth lesson, or don't quit at the first setback. The Stoics love to remind us that character isn't forged on easy days, but in the moments when everything inside you wants to give up. And that's exactly what a blacksmith does. Picture him in his workshop. In front of him, a cold, shapeless piece of iron. He places it on the anvil and strikes it again and again, 100 times, 200, 1,000. The metal resists, bends, cools down, gets heated again. But he doesn't stop, because he knows that with every strike he's not just shaping the metal, he's shaping himself. Now think about yourself. How many times have you dropped a project halfway through just because it didn't come out perfect on the first try? How many goals have you abandoned simply because you didn't see quick results? That's what happens to most people. And it's one of laziness's biggest allies, quitting early. It doesn't need to convince you not to try, just to whisper, "It's not worth continuing." And you believe it. You start reading a book with excitement, but after 20 pages, it ends up forgotten on a shelf. You commit to exercising, but after a long day you decide it's not worth it anymore. The problem wasn't lack of talent or ability, it was impatience. Because beating laziness is mostly about learning to act, even when you don't see results right away. Marcus Aurelius left us a quote we should carve into our minds. What stands in the way becomes the way. Every obstacle, every stumble, every day when nothing seems to move forward, isn't there to stop you. It's there to teach you how to keep going. And here's the thing. The more times you push through that initial barrier, the stronger you get. Consistency isn't glamorous. It doesn't look good on social media, but it's the secret weapon that defeats laziness again and again. And if you need real proof of what this mindset can achieve, think of Thomas Edison. He failed over 1,000 times before he got a light bulb to work. When asked how he handled so many failures, he replied, "I didn't fail 1,000 times. I discovered 1,000 ways not to make a light bulb." That Stoic mindset, seeing failure as part of the process, not the end of it, is exactly what separates those who reach their goals from those who quit at the first bump in the road. So, my friend, next time you feel like giving up, remember the image of the blacksmith, because your mind works the same way. Each attempt, each mistake, every day you move forward, even just a little, is another strike that brings you closer to the shape you're aiming for. Try this. Think of that one thing you've been putting off for weeks, or even months. Maybe it's that book you swore you'd start writing, that course you left unfinished, or that personal project that lights you up just thinking about it. And yet you keep saving it for when you have time. Now, instead of seeing it as an impossible mountain, break it down until it's ridiculous not to do it. If you want to write a book, forget the 300 pages. Just write one sentence today. Just one. If you want to get moving again, don't aim for an hour at the gym. Do one push-up right now, wherever you are. And if that sounds too easy, perfect. That's the point. Because what builds discipline isn't one heroic day. It's many simple days in a row. And listen, you're going to fail. At some point you will. There will be days when you don't do what you promised yourself, when laziness wins the round. But that's where the real mental training begins, in how you interpret the stumble. Instead of beating yourself up with, "I knew it, I failed again," change the narrative. Tell yourself, "I just found one way that doesn't work." That little shift isn't just a nice phrase. It's a reminder that every attempt counts. Even failure adds up, if you keep going. Here's a trick that may seem simple, but it changes everything. Make your progress visible. Put a sheet of paper on the wall and mark off every day you stick to your commitment. Use a calendar where you can cross off each small victory with a red marker. Download an app that shows you, with numbers, how far you've come. The method doesn't matter. What matters is that you can see the path. Because once a day is marked, it's no longer just another day. It becomes physical proof of your consistency. Proof that you're beating laziness. Seneca said it with brutal clarity. Perseverance conquers all. And he was right. Because laziness isn't beaten with bursts of motivation. It's beaten with small, repeated decisions. With steps taken even when no one claps. With days that show no results, but you keep going anyway. And when you understand that, you realize giving up was never a real option. It was just the easy way out your mind offered you. And you're not here to choose what's easy. You're here to conquer what you've set out to do, one strike after another. Lesson 10. Your body trains your mind. Picture a sword forged for battle. At first it shines, it cuts with precision, it commands respect. But if you leave it untouched, covered in dust, unused, it starts to rust. It loses its edge. It becomes useless. That's exactly what happens to you. Your body is that sword, the instrument you use to move through the world. If you let it rust, don't expect your mind to stay sharp, because even if we try to separate them, body and mind aren't distant enemies. They're inseparable allies. And when one falls, the other follows. The Stoics knew this well. They weren't thinkers locked away in ivory towers. They were men of action. Marcus Aurelius didn't just write deep reflections in his war tent. He marched beside his soldiers through rain and mud. Epictetus, despite his disability, insisted on training his body because he understood his mind needed that resilience. For them, the body was a training ground for character. It wasn't vanity, it was strategy. And now I want you to be brutally honest with yourself. How many times have you said, "I'll start Monday"? How many times have you promised, "This time for real you'll take care of yourself"? Only to come up with another excuse? Every single one of those moments is like another layer of rust on your sword. You say you don't have time, but you waste it on screens. You say you don't have energy, but you forget that moving is what creates it. The problem isn't your body. The problem is your mind has already given up before even starting. Let me tell you something most people don't know. When Charles Darwin set off on his famous voyage aboard the Beagle, he spent months in brutal conditions, hunger, cold, illness. But he never stopped walking, climbing, moving. In his journals, he wrote that those daily walks, as exhausting as they were his way of thinking clearly and keeping his morale high. His body wasn't just a vehicle, it was the tool that kept his mind awake. And thanks to that physical strength, he was able to develop the ideas that changed the history of science. And you, even if you're not exploring new continents, are facing your own storms. The job that drains you, the worries that won't stop, the fear of failure. And if your body isn't ready, your mind will be the first to feel it. Because without movement, there's no clarity. Without physical effort, there's no focus. Without bodily discipline, your willpower crumbles in everything else. Think of it this way. Your body is the first place where you can practice self-mastery. Waking up early, training even when you don't feel like it, going for a walk when your mind tells you to stay on the couch. None of that is just exercise. It's rebellion against weakness. Every drop of sweat is proof that you're in charge. And you don't need to do something epic. Sometimes 10 minutes of movement changes everything. Do you know why? Because when your body gets going, your brain releases dopamine, endorphins, serotonin. Those chemicals don't just lift your mood, they lower stress, boost focus, and increase your sense of control. It's like opening a window in a stuffy room. The air rushes in and suddenly you can breathe. Feeling anxious? Walk. Struggling to concentrate? Move. Paralyzed by fear? Get up from the chair and make your body act. Because when the body moves, the mind stops spinning. And that's not cheap motivation. That's science working in service of your mental strength. My friend, your body is not a sidekick. It's your first fortress. And if that fortress is falling apart, everything else will collapse. There's no point in talking about building an unbreakable mind if every day you trap it in a weak, slow, exhausted body. This isn't about looks. It's about freedom. Because when your body responds, your mind dares. Try this experiment. The next time you feel overwhelmed, don't stay stuck in a loop of circular thoughts. Move. Walk for 5 minutes. Breathe deeply while you do it. Watch what happens. Your mind starts to settle, the anxiety fades, your thoughts become clearer. That's not magic. That's biology taking your side. Find a movement that makes you feel alive. Run, dance, swim, lift weights, or simply go for a walk. It doesn't matter what you do. What matters is why you do it. Because every time you choose to move, you're reminding yourself that you can take action, that you're in control. And with every decision you make in favor of your body, you're training your mind too. Seneca said it plainly, a well-cared-for body is the reflection of an orderly mind. And he was right. It's not about showing off muscles or meeting shallow standards. It's about building the tool you'll use to fight your battles. If you neglect that tool, the inner war will be much harder to win. Lesson 11. Learn to be alone with yourself. We live surrounded by noise, messages, screens, conversations, notifications that pop up even when you're not expecting them. Some days it feels like silence is going extinct, like an endangered species. And tell me honestly, when was the last time you were truly alone with yourself? Not scrolling through your phone, not planning what's next, but actually listening, really listening to yourself. If the Stoics were alive today, Marcus Aurelius probably wouldn't be writing his reflections on parchment. He'd be typing them into the Notes app on his phone. And even then, a notification would probably pop up just as he was about to have a moment of insight. Picture the scene. Remember, you will die. New message from WhatsApp. Even he would lose his patience. All jokes aside, the Stoics understood better than anyone the need to disconnect from the noise of the world in order to reconnect with yourself. Epictetus taught his students that the mind needs silence the way the body needs rest. And Seneca didn't sugarcoat it. He recommended stepping away from the chaos from time to time, not to escape the world, but to return to it stronger. Because the real danger isn't the external noise. The real problem starts when that noise moves inside. When you let other people's opinions, comparisons, and distractions take up so much space in your mind that you can no longer hear your own voice. The Stoics knew that the soul sometimes needs airplane mode. No connection, no interference, just you, with yourself. Imagine coming home after a long day. Traffic, emails, unfinished conversations, everything still spinning in your head. Your first instinct is to turn on the TV, play some music, or grab your phone to distract yourself. But this time, don't. Sit in silence for 5 minutes. Breathe. Don't look at the clock. Don't try to fix anything. Just notice what's going on inside. It might feel uncomfortable at first, I know. But soon, something starts to clear up. That calm you feel doesn't come from the outside. It comes from reconnecting with yourself. Seneca wrote a line that captures this perfectly. There is no retreat more peaceful than that which is found within oneself. Let me repeat that, not because it sounds poetic, but because it's deeply true. He meant that peace isn't about escaping noise. It's about not carrying it with you. You can be in the quietest place on earth and still feel restless, or you can be in the middle of chaos and still feel grounded. If you've learned how to find that refuge within, when you learn to be alone with yourself, you stop needing so much from the outside. You no longer depend on validation, applause, or constant noise to feel alive. You discover a new kind of strength, the kind that comes from knowing you can be with yourself without wanting to run away. And that, my friend, brings you closer than anything else to your best self. Start small. Take 5 minutes a day to sit in silence, not to think, just to observe. If something bothers you, don't rush to cover it up with distractions. Stay still and listen, because your soul speaks in the silences you usually avoid. And I'm going to give you a challenge. Not an impossible one, just something simple but powerful. The challenge is to spend intentional time alone. Choose a day this week and plan it like a special meeting. Wake up early, get dressed as if you were going to meet someone important, and go out alone. No headphones, no rush. Go to your favorite cafe and sit in silence. Don't take out your phone, just observe. Watch people walk by, listen to the sound of cups clinking, breathe in the smell of freshly brewed coffee. Then take a walk without a destination, maybe through a park, along the beach, or down a quiet street. Walk without thinking about what you need to do later. Just walk, breathe. Look up at the sky, give yourself permission to be fully present. If a thought shows up, let it go. Don't chase it. When you get home, write down 3 lines about what you felt. Not what you thought, what you felt while being alone with yourself. You might be surprised to realize that solitude isn't as heavy when you learn to enjoy it. This is the kind of practice the Stoics would have loved. Not because of the coffee or the walk, of course, but because in those simple moments, the mind resets. Marcus Aurelius did the same thing, only his coffee was the Roman sunrise and his walk was the silence of his military tent. He understood that peace isn't found in temples or retreats. It's in those few minutes of full attention when you come back to yourself. Do it once a week, a date with yourself, to listen, to understand, to remember who you are when you're not performing for the world. Because when you learn to enjoy your own company, you stop needing so much from everyone else. Lesson 12. Let go of the weight that holds you down. There are hot air balloons that could cross entire mountain ranges, but they never take off because they're still tied to the ground. The fire is lit, the hot air ready to lift them, the wind blowing in their favor. And yet they don't move. Why? Because the ropes are still holding on to sandbags that are too heavy. And here's the uncomfortable truth. We all have those sandbags in our lives. They're not always material things. Sometimes they're people, habits, or beliefs we carry around that, even if we tell ourselves they don't weigh that much, are actually keeping us from flying. Think about your week. You start Monday determined to move forward with fresh ideas and motivation. But little by little, without noticing, you start spending energy on conversations that lead nowhere. You reply to messages from people who only complain, accept invitations you don't want, and say yes to tasks that add nothing to your goals. By Friday, the tank is empty. And the worst part, your real project, the one that truly matters to you, is still waiting. Sound familiar? Bodybuilder Ernestine Shepherd experienced this firsthand. At over 70 years old, she kept hearing the same phrase, "You're too old to try." That voice, repeated by friends and even family, was a sandbag keeping her balloon tied down. One day she decided she couldn't keep listening to that if she wanted to fly. She distanced herself from those influences, started training, taking care of herself. And years later, at 74, she entered the Guinness World Records as the world's oldest competitive female bodybuilder. What changed her life wasn't just exercise. It was letting go of the emotional weight holding her back. Marcus Aurelius had a clear method for avoiding the pull of what drained him. In a palace where everyone wanted something from him, he filtered ruthlessly what added no value. He didn't spend hours arguing with people whose goal was to impose their ego. He didn't attend every banquet just to please others. And he didn't carry other people's guilt. It was as if he inspected the hive every day, removing anything that could sicken it before it spread. That's why he wrote, "What's not good for the hive is not good for the bee." He understood that caring for the whole started with caring for himself and his mental space. This is where you need to get serious with yourself and act as Marcus Aurelius would. Start by spotting those energy leaks, one by one. Make a list, even if it's uncomfortable to see it in writing. Maybe it's that friend who always calls just to complain, that activity you do purely out of habit, or that routine that leaves you drained and unmotivated. Next, reduce their presence gradually but firmly. No, you don't have to cut everything overnight, but you do need to set clear boundaries. It could be spending less time with someone who always drags you into negativity, or saying, "I can't today," when you know that plan adds nothing to your life. Even something as simple as muting a chat that steals hours from you can make a difference. Finally, fill the space you've cleared with fuel for your best self. Surround yourself with people who push you to improve. Dedicate time to activities that move you closer to your goals, and build habits that strengthen your body and mind. Just like a hot air balloon needs less weight and more hot air to rise, you need to drop dead weight and feed what lifts you higher. Think of it this way: if your balloon is tied with 10 ropes and you cut only one, it'll move a little but still stay on the ground. If you cut them all, even a light wind will lift it. No, it's not about living in isolation. It's about being selective with what you allow around you. Because as the saying goes, what you tolerate, you feed. Killing the part of you that holds you back isn't a one-day dramatic act. It's a series of conscious decisions where you choose to release, let go, and prioritize what takes you higher. Sometimes the hardest part isn't lighting the fire. It's having the courage to cut the ropes. Lesson 13. Improve 1%. Each day, picture yourself looking in the mirror one morning, promising to change. You start off full of energy, that fresh determination of someone who feels the moment has finally come to start, for real. But as the days go by, the motivation fades. You slip back into old habits, familiar excuses, not because you don't want to improve, but because you're expecting change to happen all at once. We've been tricked into thinking transformation is sudden, but the Stoics knew the truth. Real change isn't measured in days. It's built through consistency. Epictetus understood this from a young age. He was born a slave. He had no freedom or power, but each day he trained the one thing no one could ever take from him: his mind. He observed himself, mastered himself in the everyday. He didn't wait for the world to be fair before he started growing. He started anyway. To every humiliation, he responded with calm. To every hardship, with reflection. Slowly, he sharpened his character until it became unbreakable. Not because the world changed, but because he did. Centuries later, writer James Clear popularized an almost identical idea in his book Atomic Habits: improve by 1% each day. What Clear expressed through data, Epictetus had already lived with his soul. Both understood the same truth: meaningful change doesn't come from giant leaps, but from small steps, repeated with intention. Epictetus used to say, "No great thing is created suddenly." And he wasn't just talking about outward success. He was talking about the soul. Epictetus didn't become wise on some random day. He earned it through countless invisible victories, through silent training, through steady growth, like a drop of water falling on a stone. It doesn't break it with force, but with persistence. That's how character is forged. That's how the mind is trained. You are the drop, and your life is the stone. Every time you choose to act with patience, with calm, with integrity, you're shaping a part of yourself. At first, it won't show, and that's frustrating. But time, my friend, always rewards the ones who keep going. What seems like a small gesture today will become part of your strength tomorrow. Believe me, you can do it. If my friend Daniel could, so can you. He used to start everything with fire and abandon it halfway. New habits, new goals, new plans. Every beginning filled him with hope and every failure with guilt. Until one day he had enough, not of failing, but of feeling empty. He decided to try something different. He no longer wanted to become his best self overnight. He just wanted to improve a little each day. He started with something so small it felt ridiculous. Writing one sentence before bed about something he'd done well. I didn't argue with my boss today. I went for a walk. I stayed calm in that conversation. It was his way of reminding himself he could still make progress, even if it was small. At first, he struggled to find something good to write, but he kept at it. Over time, little things started to shift. When someone interrupted him, he paused before responding. When laziness crept in, he thought about what he wanted to write that night and pushed himself a little further. These weren't grand achievements, but slowly, he began to feel different. His mind became clearer, his character more grounded. 6 months later, Daniel hadn't changed the world. He had changed his relationship with himself. He no longer spoke to himself with guilt, but with respect. He no longer waited to feel motivated before acting. He just acted. Without realizing it, he had embraced Epictetus's principle. Improve a little each day, no rush, no pause. That's the 1%. You don't need to do everything today. Just do it a little better than yesterday. And when you fall short, don't start from scratch. Learn. One bad day doesn't erase your progress. It's all part of the journey. Try it for yourself. Choose just one virtue to work on this week. Patience, consistency, or calm. Practice it in small ways. If you have to wait, practice being still. If someone provokes you, hold your reaction. If you're feeling lazy, push for just 5 more minutes. Every gesture is a drop. And even if you can't see the change yet, you're shaping your character. The Stoics called this ascesis, training the soul. They didn't expect life to be easy. They used it as their gym. Everything that happened to them became an opportunity to practice. You can do the same. The routine, the annoyances, the awkward conversations. It can all help you grow if you choose to see it that way. Lesson 14. Your strength is already there, you just hide it. My friend, how many times have you thought you couldn't handle something, and then, when there was no other choice, you did? How many times have you reacted to a crisis as if you'd always known what to do, even though you were shaking inside? And how many times, after pulling it off, have you found yourself saying, "I didn't know I could"? Picture this. In your own backyard, right under your feet, there's a chest that's been buried for years. Inside, there are no jewels or coins, but something far more valuable. All the tools you need to face any challenge and win. They've been there all along, but one day, without realizing it, you started covering it with dust, dry leaves, and dirt. Every excuse, every fear, every "I can't" was another layer on top. So it's not that you've lost your strength, it's that you've buried it yourself under tons of habit and self-limitations. I'm sure you've had a moment when that chest opened on its own. You're at work and suddenly a crisis hits. An important client calls, furious, demanding answers right away. Normally, you'd let someone else handle it. But that day you didn't. Without thinking, you took control. You spoke calmly, measured every word, steered the conversation, and within minutes, the storm was gone. When you hung up, you stood there for a second thinking, "I didn't know I could do that." And there's the truth, you always could, but you had forgotten. That's your real strength, the one that shows up when your weak version doesn't have time to get in the way. You don't have to invent a new strength, my friend. You just have to remember you already carry it inside. The same thing happened to Diana Niad, the swimmer who, at 64, swam from Cuba to Florida. She had tried decades earlier without success, but never gave up. When she finally made it, she said, "It's not about being younger or stronger. It's about deciding you already are." It wasn't a miracle. It was digging deep enough to find what had always been there. Marcus Aurelius wrote it in his Meditations. "Look within yourself. Within is the fountain of good, and it will ever bubble up if you will ever dig." He wasn't talking about creating something new, but about clearing away the dirt, about stopping yourself from burying your own capacity. Your best self isn't hidden in some distant future, but under layers of thoughts telling you it's not the right time. You're not ready. Something's missing. Haven't you noticed? When you act without giving your doubts time to speak, your natural response is far more decisive and confident. What changes isn't your ability. It's the space you give that part of you that always wants to hold you back. That's why, if you want to stop living as if you were weak, we're going to do it in 3 clear steps. And yes, my friend, no excuses. Right now, remember a specific moment when you acted as your best self without even planning it. Maybe it was that time you stood up for a teammate in a meeting, or when you solved a tricky situation at home in minutes. No, I think once I might have. I want a specific moment. The more detailed, the better. Then ask yourself, how were you standing? Were you upright, owning the room, or hunched in the corner? What tone of voice did you use? Firm and clear, or shakier than jelly? Where were you? At your desk, in the kitchen, in the middle of the street? Even silly details count. Were you holding your favorite coffee? Wearing your lucky jacket? It may sound funny, but your brain links those elements to confidence, and repeating them can trigger it faster than you think. Now replicate it, but on purpose. If that day you were standing tall with your shoulders back, do it today, even in front of your computer. If you used a firmer tone, try speaking like that even when ordering lunch. And no, you won't look strange. You'll look confident. It's like putting your body in hero mode so your mind follows. If you keep doing it, you'll notice something interesting. Your weak version starts running out of space to slip in. The key is not letting it close the chest again. That voice that says someday is the same one stealing from you today. And as long as you believe it, you'll keep burying what's already yours. Think of every challenge as a chance to pull out another tool, a tough phone call, a workout you don't feel like doing, an uncomfortable decision. All of it is digging, and every shovelful brings you closer to the strength that never left. So now tell me, are you going to keep acting like you're not strong enough, or are you going to open that chest and use what's already yours? Tell me in the comments. And if you know for sure that starting today you're going to live as your best self, write, "Today I open my chest and bury my weak self." Lesson 15. Start by taking care of yourself. Dawn falls over Rome. While the city sleeps, Marcus Aurelius is already awake, sitting in silence next to an oil lamp. He's not signing decrees or meeting with ambassadors. He's writing for himself. He's reflecting on how he slept, what thoughts are filling his mind as he wakes up, how he can protect his energy today so the chaos of the empire doesn't sweep him away. It might seem trivial, but he understood something most people still don't. If you don't master your first few hours, the rest of the day will master you. This habit was his shield. Marcus didn't start the day in a rush. He started it with awareness. He would ask himself, what can I control today? Where can I be better than yesterday? And that reflection wasn't just philosophical introspection, it was a survival strategy. He ruled a vast empire, faced wars, betrayals, and constant pressure. If he didn't take care of his body, his mind, and his energy, everything else would fall apart. That's why he said, do what your nature requires of you. And nature requires rest, nourishment, movement, and mental clarity before it demands action. Without those foundations, not even the most powerful emperor can stay standing. Now think about yourself. How many times do you start the day rushing, skipping breakfast, scrolling on your phone, your mind already cluttered with news, messages, and tasks? How often do you get to mid-morning already drained, your head scattered, feeling like the day is dragging you along? This isn't about lacking motivation. You're trying to build a solid life on shaky ground. You want to be disciplined with an exhausted mind and a body running on empty. The truth no one tells you is that laziness often isn't laziness. It's exhaustion. And that exhaustion builds up because you never stop to recharge. Poor sleep, junk food, zero movement, drowning in digital noise, each one of those chips away at your willpower. And when it's time to take action, it's not that you don't want to. It's that you just can't. Seneca said it clearly. The body must be treated with discipline so it can serve the soul. If your body becomes an obstacle, your mind will never be free. Picture yourself as a warrior. Every day you step into battle. Work, relationships, personal goals, unexpected challenges. But if you walk onto the field without sharpening your sword or fueling your body, what do you think will happen? You'll fall at the first hit. Your mind is that sword. your body, your armor. And both rust if you don't care for them daily. So, my friend, if you truly want to defeat laziness, start at the beginning. Take care of the temple you live in. Do it with simple but firm actions. Drink a big glass of water the moment you wake up. Yes, even if you're too lazy to do it. After a full night's sleep, your brain is dehydrated and needs that boost to switch on. Then take 3 or 4 minutes to breathe deeply. Nothing else, just watch the air come in and out. It might seem silly, but that little moment of silence is like dusting off your mind before the chaos begins. After that, write down what you really want to achieve today. Don't fill the list with 20 useless tasks. Write 3 things that, if you complete them, will make the day feel worth it. For example, finish the work report, go for a 30-minute run, or call that person I've been avoiding for weeks. When the goal is clear early on, the rest of the day has direction. Also, set a fixed time to go to sleep and wake up, even on weekends. This isn't a productivity hack, it's training for your nervous system. If one day you sleep at midnight, the next at 2 a.m., then at 10 p.m., your body never knows when to recharge. But if you stick to a rhythm, it'll start generating energy more steadily. And trust me, that consistency boosts your focus more than any coffee or supplement. Make self-care a discipline, not a luxury. Because real self-care isn't a spa day. It's the daily decision not to sabotage your energy. The Stoics didn't do it for vanity. They did it because they knew that without that foundation, virtue can't grow. Epictetus said it best. First, say to yourself what you would be, and then do what you have to do. And the first thing you have to do is take care of the protagonist of your story, you. Remember this, laziness isn't fought when you're already on the floor, drained and powerless. It's fought earlier, when you choose to prepare your body and mind to face the day. Because the one who masters their first hours masters their destiny, and the one who starts the day taking care of themselves ends the day conquering it. Lesson 16. Organize your day like a strategist. Imagine your day is a battle. From the moment you open your eyes, you have 2 options. Improvise and walk onto the battlefield with no plan, or pull out a clear map that tells you when and where to strike. Laziness doesn't always win because you're weak. Sometimes it wins simply because it doesn't know what you'll hit back with. If you don't have structure, every interruption becomes an ambush, and every decision becomes an extra weight that slows you down. Think about how many days you've ended feeling drained without having done anything truly important. You jump from task to task, reply to messages, check your email 20 times, bounce between tabs, and by nightfall your energy is gone with nothing to show for it. The problem isn't that you didn't work hard, it's that you didn't have a strategy. And beating laziness also means this: learning to organize your time with intention so that every action has a clear purpose. Seneca knew this well. At night, before going to sleep, he would review everything he had done to see what he could improve the next day. When night falls, I examine my entire day, he wrote. He didn't need a planner filled with motivational quotes or a fancy digital calendar. If he'd had one, he probably would have used it in the simplest way possible. Time blocks dedicated to what truly mattered. No room for irrelevant tasks or distractions disguised as urgency. And that's where many people go wrong. They think discipline means working more hours, when in reality, it means choosing more wisely what to spend those hours on. Science backs this up. Cal Newport, author of Deep Work, popularized the technique of time blocking, dividing your day into blocks with specific goals. According to several studies, this practice reduces procrastination by up to 70% because it eliminates constant decision-making, which wears out your brain. You don't have to ask yourself what to do every 5 minutes. You already know in advance. Picture this. You've got 10 small tasks on your list, none prioritized. You start with the easiest one, then jump to another, then another, and by the end of the day, none of them are finished. You're exhausted, yes, but you haven't moved forward. That happens because your mind is burning energy just trying to decide what to do next. So how can you change that? What can you do to stop wasting your day on things that don't matter? Start with one simple but powerful habit. Every morning, write down just the 3 tasks that will truly make a difference in your day. Not 10, not 15, just 3. This forces your mind to separate what's essential from what's just noise. Here's where you can apply a very Stoic practice Marcus Aurelius used every morning. Before starting his day, he'd spend a few minutes reflecting on what was ahead. Today, I will meet meddling, ungrateful, arrogant people. He didn't do it out of pessimism, but to prepare his mind. When you anticipate difficulties, you stop reacting impulsively and start responding with strategy. Do the same with your day. Imagine what obstacles might pop up and how you'll handle them. That mental preparation is just as important as any task list. Then divide your day into blocks with clear objectives. For example, deep work from 9 to 11, respond to emails from 12 to 1, exercise at 6. Treat each block like a non-negotiable appointment with yourself. It's not optional, just like an important meeting wouldn't be. And at the end of the day, do a mini Stoic review. Ask yourself, what did I do well today? What distracted me? What can I adjust for tomorrow? This pause isn't a waste of time. It's the tool that allows you to learn from each day and improve the next. You can also use a small trick to start your day with more clarity. Before going to sleep, write down your plan for the next day, just like Seneca used to do. When you wake up, you'll already have a roadmap, and your mind won't waste energy trying to decide what to do. This cuts down the initial friction, that moment when laziness usually takes over. In the end, organizing your day isn't just about productivity, it's a declaration of intent. It means you've decided to stop living in reaction mode and start living with direction. Because a day without structure is like a ship adrift. It might float, but it'll never reach a destination. On the other hand, when you plan your day with intention, every hour has a direction, and every action brings you closer to what you want to build. 17th lesson. Spot the traitor in your head. Picture this. You're the king of a prosperous kingdom. You have power, resources, and everything you need to expand your borders. But without you knowing, one of your closest advisors is working against you, always with gentle words, always with reasons that sound smart. He never yells, never threatens. He simply plants doubts and advises you to delay important decisions until you're more prepared. That advisor, my friend, lives in your head too. It's that voice that convinces you to stay comfortable, instead of moving toward what will make you stronger. And if you don't identify him and kick him out of your court, he'll keep ruling in your place. I'm sure you've seen him in action more than once. You leave work determined to train. You even laid out your clothes in the morning so there'd be no excuses. But just when you're about to change, there he is. That calm voice saying, "Today was a tough day. Better rest and do it tomorrow with more energy." It sounds logical. It even feels like it cares for you. So you buy into it. You sit down just to relax. And before you know it, you're lying down watching pointless videos and eating something you don't need. The gym has vanished from your day like it was never there. That's the traitor. He doesn't show up as an enemy, but as a friend. He speaks your language, uses your memories, even your own tone of voice. And worst of all, he has a memory. He knows exactly what to say to keep you from acting. He knows which excuses hit you the hardest. One day it's, "You're tired." Another it's, "You deserve it." And another, "It's fine to skip it just this once." But every time he wins a negotiation, you lose. And you don't just lose that one action. You feed the part of you that wants to keep you weak, still, and predictable. Epictetus put it clearly in a phrase that, if applied, changes the game completely. Don't explain your philosophy, embody it. That inner voice, no matter how convincing it sounds, is not you. It's the echo of your most comfortable habits, your resistance to change, your fear of discomfort. Every time you engage with it and give it power, you make it your real ruler. And a Stoic does not negotiate with what makes him weaker. Modern psychology has already named this mental trick. Psychologist Nick Wignall calls it self-sabotage disguised as self-protection. What does that mean? That your mind dresses up as a friend to convince you to avoid discomfort. It tells you, rest, you deserve it. Or do it tomorrow, today's not a good day. It seems like protection, but it's a trap. It saves you effort now, but robs you of progress later. So, how do you take power away from this traitor advisor? Give him a ridiculous name. Yes, you heard that right. The more absurd, the better. It could be Sir Excuses or Count Laziness. Why does it work? Because when you name him, you stop feeling like that voice is you. He becomes an external character, a jester in your court you don't have to obey. Picture yourself on the couch and suddenly hearing, "Don't go to the gym today, start tomorrow instead." That's not your voice. It's Count Laziness trying to sneak into the throne room. And you, as the king, decide if he comes in or not. This little trick turns a vague inner dialogue into a clear conversation where you're in charge. Also, every time he shows up, answer out loud, "Thanks for your opinion, but you don't decide." Saying it interrupts the flow of excuses before it grows. If you think about it, that voice often wins simply because we let it talk without limits. It's like a pushy salesman at your door. If you don't cut him off, you'll end up buying something you don't need. You can even add some humor. Look in the mirror, smile, and say, "You don't decide," as if you were the lead in your own movie. You'll be surprised how that simple act breaks the inertia. Killing the part of you that holds you back isn't a dramatic event that happens once and it's over. It's a slow execution, where every victory counts. And every time you choose to act instead of give in, that voice loses strength. Until one day it's no longer the advisor in your court. It's a powerless servant. Next time you hear that voice offering you rest when you know you should act, ask yourself, who's ruling today? Me or my inner traitor? Because as long as he's in charge, you'll be trapped in a kingdom where comfort is law and greatness is denied entry. Killing your weak version starts with cutting the tongue of that imposter and returning the throne to its rightful ruler. You. Lesson number 18. Accept your reality before you transform it. Most people don't change because they don't accept where they are. And if you don't know your starting point, how can you expect to get somewhere else? Many want to jump straight to the part where they're successful, balanced, and fully evolved. But before you build that new life, you have to take a hard look at the one you already have, without filters, without self-deception. That's exactly what Stoicism teaches. The first step to transformation isn't running away from your reality. It's observing it calmly. The Stoics weren't trying to control the world. They were trying to understand it. They knew you can't steer a ship if you don't first recognize which sea you're sailing. In the middle of Rome's chaos, Marcus Aurelius wrote one of his most powerful lines, "Love whatever happens to you, because it is woven into your destiny." He didn't say it from resignation. He said it from wisdom. Amor fati, the love of fate, isn't about giving up. It's about recognizing that everything that happens, even the things you didn't choose, can serve your growth. It's about accepting that your current reality isn't the enemy. It's your starting point. Picture an architect. Before designing a building, they need to study the land. They can't build on a surface they haven't measured, examined, or understood. If you deny your reality, your wounds, your fears, your circumstances, you're trying to build your best self on thin air. And of course it collapses. You, my friend, can be the architect of your life. And trust me, acceptance isn't surrender. It's the courage to face your life exactly as it is. No sugarcoating, no pretending everything's fine. It's acknowledging that maybe you're not where you want to be, but you're exactly where you need to be to learn what's still missing. Maybe you're in a phase of your life that you hate. You wake up early to go to a job that doesn't inspire you. You feel stuck. You think you could be doing something more meaningful. Sometimes, while staring at the clock midday, you think, "I wasn't born for this." And maybe you're right, but maybe, just maybe, this very phase you're living through is the exact preparation you need to reach what you've been dreaming of. You might be learning without even noticing. You're picking up how a business runs, how to handle customers, how to solve real problems, how to stay calm under pressure. And though it might not seem like it yet, Those are the very skills that will help you the day you finally launch your own project, when you take that leap you've been thinking about for so long. Then it clicks. This moment isn't a punishment. It's your training ground. This phase isn't holding you back, it's preparing you. And when your perspective shifts like that, the weight disappears. Because now, instead of resenting your present, you start using it. You make it part of the process of building that better version of yourself that's already on the way. That's exactly what it means to live amor fati, to understand that even the most uncomfortable parts of your story are raw material. Your mistakes, your losses, your disappointments, they're not obstacles. They're the building blocks for what comes next. The Stoics didn't aim for a perfect life, they aimed for a mind that could work with imperfection. Seneca summed it up perfectly. What matters is not what happens to you, but how you respond to it. That phrase should be written on every mirror, because we all want to change, but very few are willing to face the truth of their current situation first. Without acceptance, there's no clarity, and without clarity, there's no direction. When you refuse to accept what you're living through, it's like pushing a door that only opens inward. The more you push, the more exhausted you get. But when you accept, the door opens on its own, and on the other side, you don't find resignation. You find peace. Stop fighting the present moment. That doesn't mean you have to like it. It means you look at it directly and say, "This too is part of my path." That one sentence silences the resistance. And from there, act. Not from frustration, but from clarity. When you take action just to escape your reality, you end up repeating the same patterns in a new setting. But when you act from understanding, each step takes you closer to a stronger, freer version of yourself. Epictetus, who was a slave before becoming a teacher, understood this better than anyone. He couldn't change his circumstances, but he could change how he lived them. And that mindset freed him long before his physical chains were removed. He once said that the wise person doesn't wait for a perfect world to act. They act in a way that brings them peace no matter the world around them. Lesson 19. Do you live with order, or are you being ruled? Picture a sculptor in his workshop. The floor is covered in dust, tools scattered everywhere, chunks of marble lying around. He tries to focus, but the chaos overwhelms him. Every shadow, every sound, every out-of-place object steals his precision, until finally, he strikes in the wrong place and ruins his work. It wasn't a lack of talent. It was his environment. That's how many of us live today. We want clarity surrounded by noise. We search for calm in the middle of disorder. We hope for discipline while trying to work in a mental workshop full of distractions. But tell me, how are you going to build a strong mind if the space around you feels like a battlefield? Your environment is the invisible chisel that shapes your character. If it's chaotic, you will be too. If Marcus Aurelius saw you right now, he wouldn't ask how you're doing. He'd look at your surroundings. He'd see the piles of clothes, the objects you don't use, the phone vibrating nonstop, and he'd know you've lost focus. Because he understood that outer order is a reflection of inner command. During military campaigns, he rode in the middle of cold, noise, and exhaustion. But inside his tent, everything was intentional. No decorations, no distractions, just what was necessary to think. It was his way of reminding himself that even when the world was chaos, his mind could still remain calm. Now look at yourself. What does your environment say about you? I'm not just talking about your room or your desk. I mean the noise you allow in every day. Notifications, pointless conversations, endless consumption. All of that is dust in your mental workspace. You can't sculpt a strong mind if your thoughts keep tripping over the rubble of disorder. Seneca warned that the more you own, the more of a slave you become to what you have. He wasn't just talking about material wealth. He meant mental excess too. Thoughts without purpose, empty routines, unnecessary noise. If your surroundings are overflowing, chances are your mind is too. The external always finds its way inside. Your environment isn't just where you live. It's where your discipline is trained. Every object out of place teaches you to delay. Every clean space teaches you to act. If you spend your day surrounded by chaos, you're reinforcing the pattern of a weak mind, one that reacts instead of deciding. But when you choose to create an environment that inspires clarity, you're training the invisible strength of self-mastery. Think of Epictetus. He lived in such a modest home, he barely had furniture. When a thief broke in and stole his lamp, he simply said, "He lost it, not me." That wasn't just a poetic line. It was a declaration of power. His surroundings didn't control him. They served him. He lived with just enough because he understood that clarity doesn't come from owning more, but from needing less. And you don't have to become a minimalist to apply this. You don't need to throw everything away. Just keep what matters. Try something. Open a drawer and empty it. Don't overthink it. Keep only what you use, what you love, and what pushes you forward. Everything else and let it go. This isn't about becoming a minimalist. It's about refusing to live buried under things that mean nothing. A clear space creates clear decisions. And every time you choose order over chaos, you're strengthening your mind. Start with something small. A clean table before bed, a screen-free room when you wake up, an entire afternoon without notifications. Small wins repeated. Build a strong mind, because your space doesn't just reflect who you are. It reflects who you're choosing to become. Now imagine the sculptor returns to his workshop, but this time he cleans it. He places each tool where it belongs, sweeps the dust, clears the space. In that silence, he can finally see the shape he wanted to create. His hand becomes steady again. His focus returns to the marble. His work begins to take form. That's what happens to you when you choose order. You stop reacting and start building. And if it's hard to keep it up, remember this. External discipline isn't obsession. It's a mirror. Every item in its place tells you that you're present, you're choosing, you're in control. Because when you let your environment fall apart, what you're really doing is letting your mind fall apart. My friend, you can't build mental strength in a space that weakens you. The place where you live, work, or rest is training you, always. It's either pulling you toward mastery or pushing you deeper into distraction. There's no middle ground. So make every corner speak to who you want to be, not who you're trying to overcome. Lesson 20. Start by taking care of yourself. Dawn falls over Rome. While the city sleeps, Marcus Aurelius is already awake, sitting in silence next to an oil lamp. He's not signing decrees or meeting with ambassadors. He's writing for himself. He's reflecting on how he slept, what thoughts are filling his mind as he wakes up, how he can protect his energy today so the chaos of the empire doesn't sweep him away. It might seem trivial, but he understood something most people still don't. If you don't master your first few hours, the rest of the day will master you. This habit was his shield. Marcus didn't start the day in a rush. He started it with awareness. He would ask himself, what can I control today? Where can I be better than yesterday? And that reflection wasn't just philosophical introspection, it was a survival strategy. He ruled a vast empire, faced wars, betrayals, and constant pressure. If he didn't take care of his body, his mind, and his energy, everything else would fall apart. That's why he said, do what your nature requires of you. And nature requires rest, nourishment, movement, and mental clarity before it demands action. Without those foundations, not even the most powerful emperor can stay standing. Now think about yourself. How many times do you start the day rushing, skipping breakfast, scrolling on your phone, your mind already cluttered with news, messages, and tasks? How often do you get to mid-morning already drained, your head scattered, feeling like the day is dragging you along? This isn't about lacking motivation. You're trying to build a solid life on shaky ground. You want to be disciplined with an exhausted mind and a body running on empty. The truth no one tells you is that laziness often isn't laziness. It's exhaustion. And that exhaustion builds up because you never stop to recharge. Poor sleep, junk food, zero movement, drowning in digital noise, each one of those chips away at your willpower. And when it's time to take action, it's not that you don't want to. It's that you just can't. Seneca said it clearly. The body must be treated with discipline, so it can serve the soul. If your body becomes an obstacle, your mind will never be free. Picture yourself as a warrior. Every day you step into battle. Work, relationships, personal goals, unexpected challenges. But if you walk onto the field without sharpening your sword or fueling your body, what do you think will happen? You'll fall at the first hit. Your mind is that sword, your body, your armor. And both rust if you don't care for them daily. So, my friend, if you truly want to defeat laziness, start at the beginning. Take care of the temple you live in. Do it with simple but firm actions. Drink a big glass of water the moment you wake up. Yes, even if you're too lazy to do it. After a full night's sleep, your brain is dehydrated and needs that boost to switch on. Then take 3 or 4 minutes to breathe deeply. Nothing else, just watch the air come in and out. It might seem silly, but that little moment of silence is like dusting off your mind before the chaos begins. After that, write down what you really want to achieve today. Don't fill the list with 20 useless tasks. Write 3 things that, if you complete them, will make the day feel worth it. For example, finish the work report, go for a 30-minute run, or call that person I've been avoiding for weeks. When the goal is clear early on, the rest of the day has direction. Also, set a fixed time to go to sleep and wake up, even on weekends. This isn't a productivity hack, it's training for your nervous system. If one day you sleep at midnight, the next at 2 a.m., then at 10 p.m., your body never knows when to recharge. But if you stick to a rhythm, it'll start generating energy more steadily. And trust me, that consistency boosts your focus more than any coffee or supplement. Make self-care a discipline, not a luxury. Because real self-care isn't a spa day. It's the daily decision not to sabotage your energy. The Stoics didn't do it for vanity. They did it because they knew that without that foundation, virtue can't grow. Epictetus said it best. First, say to yourself what you would be, and then do what you have to do. And the first thing you have to do is take care of the protagonist of your story, you. Remember this, laziness isn't fought when you're already on the floor, drained and powerless. It's fought earlier, when you choose to prepare your body and mind to face the day. Because the one who masters their first hours masters their destiny, and the one who starts the day taking care of themselves ends the day conquering it. Lesson 21. Time is your most valuable currency. Every morning, without asking, someone deposits a silent treasure into your account. 24 coins. No interest, no savings, no way to keep them for tomorrow, no advance if you run out. And when the day ends, whatever you didn't use vanishes as if it never existed. You know it, I know it. Yet we keep living as if that account were eternal. Think about it. How many of those coins do you spend on things you can't even remember by the end of the day? I'm sure it's happened to you. Sunday night, with fresh energy, you promise yourself, this week will be different. But Monday comes and you start paying with your coins without even noticing. 5 on endless scrolling while you eat breakfast. 3 on meetings that could have been a quick message. 2 on conversations that just drain you. And a few more on arguments that change nothing. By the end of the week, when Friday arrives, it's not that you've run out of time. It's that your balance was spent on nonsense. You've moved a lot of coins, but invested in nothing that counts. It's like having a bag of gold and using it to buy smoke. This isn't just a modern problem. Throughout history, those who lived as their best selves understood that time was the most fragile and precious resource they had. Ozan Varol, former NASA engineer, learned this suddenly. From the outside, his life looked perfect. A stable job as a university professor, recognition, security. But inside, he felt like he was spending his coins each day on something that didn't fulfill him. His choice wasn't impulsive, but it was conscious. He left the university and began investing his days in writing, creating projects, and living in a way that made him feel alive. And that's the key. It's not about how much time you have, but about where you put it. You don't need anyone to tell you that time is your most valuable asset. But the Stoics didn't just repeat it. They practiced it with surgical discipline. Seneca made it clear. It's not that we have little time, it's that we waste much. and he himself mastered the art of avoiding it. Surrounded by people seeking his advice, inviting him to banquets and meetings that were pure social theater, he still knew when to say no. He refused the unnecessary without guilt, because he understood that each banquet was one less page written. Each empty conversation was a deep thought left unborn. He reserved sacred hours to reflect, write, and sharpen his mind, like a warrior who guards his sword. He wasn't antisocial, he was strategic. And here's the lesson. Every yes you give to what doesn't matter is a silent no to what could change your life. Now, my friend, it's time to look yourself in the eye. Where are you spending your coins? Be honest. You don't have a lack of time, you have a lack of clear priorities. And here's where you can start changing it. Choose just one action that, if you complete it today, will make your day worthwhile. Not 5, not 10, 1. Put it at the very start of your day before noise and interruptions steal your coins without you realizing. If you want to start living as your best self, wishing isn't enough. You have to kill the part of you that spends time as if it were free. The version that says, "I'll do it later," while opening another tab, that accepts commitments you don't want, that excuses itself with, "I didn't have time," when in reality, it gave it away. Then protect that moment like a treasure. Turn off notifications, close anything unnecessary, tell whoever you must that you're not available. It sounds simple, but this is where most people fail. No, it's not that we lack discipline. It's that we leave the door open to everything that steals our focus. At the end of the day, do a quick review, not to punish yourself, but to see if your coins went where you wanted or if you gave them away. If the answer doesn't please you, adjust tomorrow. If it does, figure out how to repeat it, because what gets repeated becomes habit, and habits are the quiet but powerful way to kill the weak version that holds you back. Every coin you don't use to move forward is one someone else is using to write your story for you. And believe me, my friend, you don't want that. Today you have 24. Tomorrow maybe you'll have them too. But one day, without warning, they'll stop coming. And on that day, you won't want to look back and realize you spent them holding on to what you always wanted to let go. So cut the useless spending. Kill the part of you that settles. And start investing as if your life depended on it, because it does. Lesson 22. Be careful who you let into your mind. Have you ever felt like you're trying to change, but the people around you won't let you? You start taking care of your habits, your thoughts, your decisions, and suddenly you notice the weird looks, the subtle comments, the passive-aggressive jokes. They don't do it out of malice. It's just what they're used to. They knew you as one version of yourself, and your new one makes them uncomfortable. It reminds them that they could change too, but they'd rather not. Even the great Stoics had to be careful about this. They weren't born wise or immune to the influence of others. And I'll prove it to you with something Seneca wrote in one of his most personal letters. He said to his friend Lucilius, "Keep company with those who make you better. Welcome those you can make better." That one sentence says it all. For Seneca, relationships weren't a pastime. They were moral training. He understood that just like the body gets sick in toxic environments, the soul can also get contaminated if you don't choose your company wisely. Being around wise people wasn't elitism, it was discipline. A wise person protects their mind the same way they protect what they eat or breathe. Think of your mind as a house. Every person you let in leaves footprints, some clean, some muddy. Some walk in and open the windows, letting in light. Others, without meaning to, turn off the lights and leave you in the dark. A Stoic learns to protect that inner space, not because it's weak, but because they know their peace is sacred. Relationships are like fire. There are people who warm you without burning you. They energize you, light you up, inspire you. And then there are people who drain you, who suck up your oxygen with their complaints, negativity, or constant need for attention. And if you don't learn to protect your fire, you end up burning out. Let me tell you something. A few years ago, speaker Simon Sinek shared that early in his career, he surrounded himself with people who were constantly competing. Everyone wanted to be right. Everyone wanted to shine. And even though he learned things, he left those meetings feeling exhausted. Until one day, he met someone who listened silently, without interrupting, and at the end simply said, "You don't have to prove anything. Just be useful." That sentence changed him. From that moment on, he began surrounding himself with people who didn't make him feel small, but focused, and his career and his mind changed completely. You can do the same. You don't need to cut people out of your life, but you do need to adjust the distance. Some conversations you can have with everyone, others only with those who truly understand you. There are people you can share your plans with, and others where it's better to talk about anything else. That's not selfishness, that's wisdom. Epictetus once said, "If you want to improve, be prepared to be thought foolish or strange." And he was right. When you decide to grow, some will laugh at you, some won't understand, and others will try to pull you back to the old you. Growth makes people uncomfortable, especially those who don't want to grow themselves. But that's no reason to stop. The Stoic doesn't chase approval, they chase coherence. They know that if their peace depends on others, it's already lost. My friend, be very careful who you let into your mind, because even if it doesn't seem like it, many times the words of others become your thoughts. What you hear often ends up being what you believe. That's why you need to surround yourself with people who don't compete with you, but inspire you. People who tell you the truth with respect, not resentment. People who celebrate your growth without feeling threatened by it. Also learn to set boundaries without guilt. Saying no doesn't make you selfish. Sometimes it's the purest form of self-respect. Protecting your energy doesn't mean rejecting others. It means taking care of yourself. You can't become your best self if you let other people's noise pull you off track. Try this. For 1 week, pay close attention to how you feel after speaking with each person. If you feel lighter, motivated, and calm, they're adding value. If you feel drained, tense, or confused, maybe it's time to put a little distance. Not to cut ties, just to protect your mind. The Stoics knew how easily the soul can be corrupted by the wrong company. Marcus Aurelius reminded himself of this again and again in his journal, writing that he had to stay true to his integrity, even when surrounded by ambitious and corrupt men. His greatest achievement wasn't ruling an empire. It was ruling himself. Lesson 23. Without rest, you become your own enemy. Picture a warrior who never puts down his sword. He fights one day, then another, and another. At first, his strength seems endless, but little by little, his edge wears down, his reflexes slow, his breathing grows heavier. Until one day, right before his biggest battle, the sword breaks in his hands. It wasn't the enemy who defeated him. It was his pride, his refusal to stop. That's exactly what happens to you when you think you can stay strong without resting. You believe sleep is a waste of time, that slowing down is giving up. But tell me, how do you expect to have a clear mind if you're cutting off its oxygen? How are you going to destroy your weakness if you don't even give your body the chance to recover? The Stoics understood this deeply. To them, rest wasn't indulgence. It was discipline. Marcus Aurelius, carrying the weight of an empire, wrote every night to empty his mind before sleeping. He didn't do it out of habit. He did it to survive mentally. He knew fatigue doesn't just cloud your thinking. It distorts your perception, and a tired leader sees enemies where there are none, problems where there are solutions, and obstacles where all that's needed is calm. Without rest, you lose control of your mind. You start reacting on impulse, blowing small things out of proportion, thinking through fog. And the worst part is you don't even realize when the damage began. It's like a crack in a wall. It looks small at first, but if you don't fix it, one day the entire structure comes crashing down. Think about it. We live in a world that glorifies being in a hurry. Sleep is for the weak, some say. I'll rest when I make it. But listen, that's not strength. That's arrogance dressed up as productivity. Lack of rest doesn't make you tougher. It makes you clumsier, and you pay the price with the things you need most. Your focus, your patience, your balance. Even modern science agrees. Lack of sleep lowers your attention span, your creativity, and your emotional control. It's like trying to fight with a dull sword. It works for a while, until it doesn't. And here's the irony. Rest, far from being wasted time, actually multiplies your results. When you sleep well, you make better decisions, you think more clearly, and you respond with more calm. A little-known example is Arianna Huffington, founder of the Huffington Post. For years, she bragged about working nonstop, until one day she collapsed from exhaustion in the middle of the office. That literal crash forced her to rethink everything. She began to treat sleep not as her enemy, but as a pillar of success. From then on, rest became her new philosophy. Sleeping well, she said, was the most productive decision I ever made in my career. So what about you? When will you understand that your body also needs to pause? How many times have you woken up with your mind at war and your body begging for a truce? You can't build a strong mind in a wrecked body. Rest isn't weakness, it's maintenance. It's sharpening your soul. Try it this week. For just 3 nights, guard your sleep like gold. Turn off your screens at least an hour before bed. Keep your phone away from your bed. Create silence, darkness, calm. And watch how everything changes. Your patience grows, your energy returns, your mind clears. Because when the body recharges, the spirit reignites. The Stoics knew that balance is a form of strength. Seneca said, "No wind is favorable to the one who doesn't know where they're going." If you're always tired, you won't even know what direction you're headed. Rest gives you back your clarity, your sense of direction, your ability to think before you act. Don't fool yourself with empty phrases like, "I function fine on 5 hours." No, you don't. You've just gotten used to running on half power. But you weren't born to survive. You were born to master your life. And to do that, you need to take care of your body, not grind it into the ground. My friend, resting is also training. Every night you sleep well, you're strengthening your mind, sharpening your character, preparing for tomorrow's battle. Because when you rest, you're not stopping, you're storing power. So stop romanticizing exhaustion. You're not strong for not sleeping. You're weak for not knowing when to stop. Sleep like a warrior who takes care of his sword. Because tomorrow, another battle awaits you. And if you truly want to destroy your weakness, you'd better show up with a sharp mind and a soul that's fully awake. Destroying your weakness starts here. In these 60 minutes, you've learned what many spend their whole lives without ever understanding. That strength isn't found out there, it's built within you. Every thought you control, every impulse you master, every silence you choose, is a win against your most fragile version. Remember this, real strength isn't forged when everything's going well. It's forged in the moments when life puts you to the test, and you choose not to back down. A strong mind is trained in stillness, in solitude, and most of all in your ability to stay firm when no one else does. And now I want you to make it clear, to yourself and to everyone walking this same path. Write in the comments, "My weakness dies today." They say those who stay until the end always find their reward, and you just did. So I invite you to subscribe, like, and share this video with someone who might need it. Click now on the videos you see on screen, because the journey is just beginning.